The First Warn Weather Team takes you beyond the barometer, only on News 3 Now. The Final Drive high school football coverage, Fridays at 10.
Today on News 3 Now, live at 4, a series of campaign visits in the days to come. Which campaign is sending familiar faces to Wisconsin?
Plus, how Wisconsin's new legislative maps could shape our next legislature.
And the power of the black vote and what black Wisconsinites are saying about the issues important to them as we inch closer to Election Day.
Those stories and more coming up next on News 3 Now, live at 4.
Quartz takes a different approach to health insurance. We know every life well lived is a journey, and we're here to light the way at every step. That's why for 40 years, we've been alongside the doctors and hospitals who know what their communities need. Because they're a part of them. Because we're a part of them. There's a fire burning in all of us. Let's ignite it together. Quartz. Find your spark.
Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of Live at 4, Battleground, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin will receive a series of visits from the members of the Harris-Walz campaign.
That's right. The whirlwind kicks off tomorrow with a big-name surrogate. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont plans to campaign for Harris in Superior and Baraboo Saturday. Then on Monday, the senator will rally with Milwaukee voters and SEIU Wisconsin. The union houses thousands of healthcare, public school, and property services workers all across the state.
Also on Monday, Tim Walz will be in the Badger State. This marks Walz's 5th visit to the state and 2nd to Eau Claire since becoming Harris's running mate. The Harris-Walz campaign says Walz will be participating in an unspecified political event in Eau Claire in the morning. He'll head to Green Bay in the afternoon.
And on the same day, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden will be in Madison. The campaign says she'll be speaking on abortion rights, democracy, and economic opportunity.
All of these visits come on the heels of the latest poll of Wisconsin voters that shows Trump leading Harris. From October 3rd to the 7th, Quinnipiac University conducted a study of more than 1,000 likely voters across Wisconsin. In the results, Trump led Harris 48 to 46. Green Party candidate Jill Stein and Libertarian Party candidate Chase Oliver each received 1 point. In a hypothetical two-way race, Trump receives 49% of the vote and Harris gets 47%. That's with the margin of error of plus or minus 3 percentage points.
And the two candidates will not debate again. Earlier this week, CNN set a deadline for Trump to respond to its request for a second debate. Now CNN is offering alternative town hall events on October 23rd. Harris immediately accepted, but we've heard nothing yet from Trump.
And amid the headlines about Hurricane Helene and Milton this week, lies about how the government is responding. Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance have been making false claims that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, spent money on housing illegal migrants. Trump has also made claims that FEMA was only offering $750 to Americans who lost their homes. But that figure is actually just for immediate upfront aid so survivors can cover basic needs like food, water, and baby formula.
During an appearance on The View this week, the vice president said she wants Medicare to pay for more people's long-term in-home health care. Harris says Medicare will cover that cost by negotiating lower drug prices. It's not clear yet if those savings will be enough, though. Currently, Medicare covers in-home health care up to 35 hours a week for seniors when that care is deemed necessary. But seniors who don't require more than intermittent services don't qualify.
And Russia's confirming reports that in the early days of the pandemic, Trump sent the Kremlin sample COVID-19 tests. The accusations came from veteran journalist Bob Woodward's new book about the former president's relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In that book, Woodward claims a Trump aide told him the former president had several phone calls with Putin since leaving the White House. At the time Trump would have sent the COVID test, the U.S. was experiencing a shortage. Trump has denied sending tests to Russia.
25 days until the election, and political campaigns are coping down every route to reach potential voters. That includes the mail route. Most political mailers are easy to spot from a specific campaign or party, but some blur the lines between partisan, official, and alarming. And while officials with the City of Madison Clerk's office say they haven't received reports of anyone sending their information to a bad actor this election season yet, it has happened before.
Have hesitation to provide any third-party group with your driver's license number, your date of birth, your last four of your social. All these things are identifiable information that you don't want getting out to someone who may have any other intentions of it.
Now, to check if a form is legitimate, the return address should be that of your municipal clerk. And for those of us in Madison, the city clerk's office won't send you a registration form in the mail unless you've requested one. If you have any confusion over mail you've received, you can call the Madison clerk's office at 608-266-4601.
And it's not just mailers you'll be seeing more of in the next few weeks. Candidates are flooding Wisconsin's airwaves with political ads. But how effective are they? Well, let's break it down. If you have $100 to spend on your campaign message, how many ads do you buy? Do you spend that money on mailers, digital ads? And it's a different story for the Harris campaign than it is for, say, a local state Senate candidate. We spoke with a political ad strategy expert who says those campaigns have to pick their spots carefully.
Packers Sunday football game costs a lot of money, but if you're at the top of the ticket or you're a U.S. Senate candidate, it may be a really wise investment because there are so many eyeballs on it. So in many cases, it's going to depend on your objectives and your the office that you're running for.
A down ballot candidate may have a harder time buying airtime in a highly competitive market like Wisconsin, where you have both presidential and U.S. candidates dominating.
Well, policy around trans people and athletes has been widely used as a cultural issue in recent campaigns.
Political reporter Will Keneally looks into an ad focused on that issue in our latest reality check.
We're going to take a look at this ad run by the Trump campaign that you've seen on our air.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
It's an attack ad centered around comments Kamala Harris made around transgender care in prisons.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access. It sounds insane because it is insane.
These comments came from an interview Kamala Harris gave 4 years ago. Now, they're true comments, but let's add some clarification. Prisons have a duty to provide inmates health care. Now, if they don't, with deliberate indifference to the inmate's health, that constitutes cruel and unusual punishment and is unconstitutional under the 8th Amendment. Let's take a listen to Harris's full comments during the interview.
I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care that they desired and need.
The key thing is need here. Harris wrote similar comments in a questionnaire for the ACLU. She says she supports having prisoners able to obtain medically necessary care for gender transition. Now, again, ignoring serious health concerns of inmates likely violates the 8th Amendment. According to a policy manual from the U.S. Bureau of Prisons published in 2022, the federal government is responsible for ensuring the Bureau offers appropriate services to transgender inmates. And this one additional piece of medical context, the American Medical Association Journal of Ethics has done research into transgender inmates receiving care in prison. Their research shows the odds of a trans adult committing suicide drops by 44% if they receive care. Now, that number is even higher for trans children, 73%. I'm Will Keneally with this reality check.
Well, thank you. Still ahead, the two candidates vying for the U.S. Senate seat in Wisconsin will meet in their only face-to-face debate next week.
That's right. What to expect from Tammy Baldwin and Eric Hovde is one of the topics this week's political panel will discuss. Stay with us.
After careful review of medical guidance and research on pain relief, my recommendation is simple. Every home should have Salon Paws. Powerful, yet non-addictive. Targeted and long-lasting. I recommend Salon Paws. It's good medicine.
Many window installers lack proper training. At Next Door and Window, we're reinventing window installation. Our installers are certified and trained to ensure your windows are sealed tight and energy efficient. Visit nextwindow.com to learn more.
Building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. Compare that to Trump. He fights for himself and his billionaire friends. He intends to enact a national sales tax, the Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle class families by $4,000 a year. Instead of a tax hike, we will pass a middle class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
Evan Pack is responsible for the content of this ad.
These Baldwin ads are nasty.
I can't stand them.
She never tells the truth. Now she says Eric Hovde wants to raise the retirement age.
That's malarkey.
I saw in the news Social Security will be going bankrupt in 8 years.
Are you kidding? We need Social Security.
You're surprised? Washington spends money like crazy.
And Baldwin supports all of it.
I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message.
You better get a job.
You get a job.
We hold the most powerful tool to make democracy work for Black Americans, and that's our vote. Registering to vote takes less than 10 minutes. Help protect democracy. Go to myvote.wisconsin.gov to check your voter registration status. In-person absentee voting begins Tuesday, October 22nd. City of Beloit buses will provide free rides on Election Day. Let's be all in and vote on November 5th.
100 Republicans who worked in national security for Presidents Reagan, both Bushes, and for President Trump, now endorsing Harris for president.
She came up as a prosecutor, an attorney general, into the Senate. She has the kind of character that's going to be necessary in the presidency.
Vice President Harris is standing in the breach at a critical moment in our nation's history. We have a shared commitment as Americans to do what's right for this country. This year, I am proudly casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris.
Former generals, secretaries of defense, secretaries of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, CIA directors, and National Security Council leaders under Democratic and Republican presidents, Republican members of Congress, and even former Trump administration officials agree there's only one candidate fit to lead our nation, and that's Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Well, next Friday, U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin and her Republican adversary Eric Hovde will face off in their first and only debate. That's right. It's from 7 to 8 o'clock. Jill Geisler will moderate the debate. You can watch it on our sister channel TW as well as on channel3000.com. We'll also have special pre- and post-debate coverage at 6:30 and 8. That's right before and after the debate. That show and the debate will also be available on our streaming app, Channel 3000 Plus. And of course, the race between the two is in the spotlight this week. Polls show a tightening race. Will Keneally sat down with our political panel to look at that race and recap what's happening in the presidential sweepstakes.
All right, so I want to get right into it with both of you guys. Busy week. We had the U.S. Senate race tighten, some major interviews that Harris has done this week. What are the winners and losers this week? We'll start with you, Brandon.
I think on the presidential side, I don't know that I'd score anybody with a winning week. You know, and we've talked before about moments and defining moments in the campaign for the presidential side. What will help campaigns get to undecided voters? I don't know that anybody had a winning week. I do think that the Harris campaign went into some waters that maybe were not quite certain with these interviews that she did to specific channels. The View, Colbert, Who's Your Daddy, or whatever that one is, Howard Stern. These are really narrow audiences, and if the idea was to get to undecided voters in those groups, that was good. But the downside is she opened herself up to comments made on those shows that the Trump campaign can come back and take a punch at her. So on The View, she talked about, where she didn't differ from Biden at all. So they're going to use that. So that, she opened herself up there. The question is whether that's really going to hurt and give Trump campaign more ammunition, in addition to what's going with Hurricane Helene. So I don't know there's a real winner. I think maybe the Biden camp or the Harris campaign maybe, open themselves up a little bit to some of the comments she made in those shows.
Yeah, and Dave, same with you. Do you have any winners or losers from this week?
Yeah, I think, Harris did do the 60 Minutes interview, and she handled some pretty tough questions, I think, fairly well. She had been criticized for not talking to the press, and now she talks to the press, and she gets criticized for that. But I think she had a reasonably good week. I don't know you could declare the winner, but I think she had a slightly better week than Trump. She announced that she had raised $1 billion in only 3 months. That says she'll have the resources for the campaign, but I think more importantly, it says something about the Democratic base and Democratic interest groups. They're engaged, they're excited. I think that's important. And then the other thing I thought that was very good for her this week is she launched a new ad with several prominent Republicans, never Trump Republicans, who are making the case that they'd actually vote for Harris. That's important because if they don't just sit on their hands and not vote, but actually cast a vote for Harris, that could be significant.
So we're about literally a week out from the one and only U.S. Senate debate between Baldwin and Hovde. Some of my sources say that the race has always been tighter than the Marquette poll might suggest. The race was just rated as a toss-up this week. Should Democrats, Brandon, be starting to panic in that race at all?
Well, I think a couple of things. To the point of polling, yeah, it's been tightening over the last couple of weeks, and tightening after Hovde got done with some of his advertising and changed his message. Baldwin went on another path and changed hers. So you've seen the campaigns respond, and it has tightened. Both campaigns have said their internal show is tightening. But the fact that the Cook Report moved this to a toss-up is it's not a cataclysmic kind of thing, but it is a very strong signal that in Wisconsin you have a closer race for president, you have a closer race for Senate, and so yes, it is significant, and I think you're going to see this debate has the potential to be a defining moment. If both campaigns come out neutral, like maybe the vice presidential campaign debate, nobody scores any knockout punches, they're going to go into Election Day within a couple of points, and those undecided people that we've talked about on the presidential, they may be undecided in the Senate race too. So it elevates Wisconsin's presence, in the political world, because not only are we a swing presidential, we could provide the 51st vote for either side in the majority of the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, Dave, I want to turn to you. Baldwin, 6 years ago, she had her race decided before the polls even closed. Now, albeit that was in the Trump term, 6 years, it's been a little bit different. What are going to be the campaign strategies for Baldwin and or Hovde in the last couple of weeks here?
Well, I think it's going to be the same turnout and a little bit of persuasion. I'm not as troubled by the Cook report as some others might be. The Marquette poll is generally the gold standard for polling in Wisconsin. She's had a consistent 4-point lead throughout the campaign. She had 7 points in this last poll. I'm not sure what Cook is looking at, but races typically tighten up towards the end, and so it's not surprising this one tightens up. But I'll tell you, Baldwin's got to win. If she doesn't win, I would think Harris will also lose in Wisconsin, because I expect her to run a point or two behind Baldwin. And if Harris loses Wisconsin, I don't see how she wins the presidency. So this is very important, and we'll see what happens. But I do think Baldwin's going to prevail.
Well, Dave, Brandon, thank you both so much. We will see you guys back.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
See you next time.
Still ahead on Live at 4, Wisconsin's called a purple state, but what does that really mean?
And when we're back, Allison Forget explains the split ticket voter and why they're critical for campaigns.
Introducing the new Sushi Lover Madison. All-you-can-eat sushi and hibachi at an amazing price. Now open at Westtown Mall for lunch or dinner. Be sure to try Sushi Lover Madison.
This is Good News Madison.
Brought to you by Don's Home Furniture.
Overture Center's mission is to support and elevate the community's creative culture through the arts. So 2024 marks the 20th anniversary of the opening of Overture Center for the Arts, and we are celebrating all of what we call the O moments that people experience when they come to Overture.
And that is Good News Madison, brought to you by Don's Home Furniture.
With high inflation, working families like mine are hurting, and Kamala Harris helped create this mess. Now, while Americans struggle, Kamala spent our tax dollars putting illegal immigrants up in hotel rooms, and she supported spending our tax dollars to give illegals sex changes. It's not just liberal, it's insane. Kamala Harris can never, ever be our president.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Kamala Harris is going to significantly raise taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
Kamala's plan will raise families' taxes by nearly $2,600 a year. Under Kamala, prices have already soared. Now she'd make it worse with even higher taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
President Trump will cut taxes again. No taxes on tips, overtime, or Social Security.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
The kindness, the efficiency, the respect was amazing.
From start to finish, they will take care of you.
Everybody is just so kind and everybody's so cheerful. I just never worked with a company where everybody seems to get along and they're all happy to be working for Cardinal.
Cardinal is the place to go for any type of work that you need done around your home.
I never hesitate with family, friends, neighbors to recommend Cardinal, and nobody has come back to me and said I was wrong.
Fry Construction has done it again. For the 5th year, we've won the prestigious Best of Madison Award, and it's all thanks to you. To celebrate, we're offering 29% off our exclusive Absolute Gutter System with any full roof or siding project. Our gutters are custom fabricated on-site for a perfect, seamless fit that's engineered to excel. Don't just beautify your home, beautify it with the experts you trust. Call Fry Construction today and let us show you why we're the best of Madison.
Introducing the new Sushi Lover Madison. All-you-can-eat sushi and hibachi at an amazing price. Now open at Westtown Mall for lunch or dinner. Be sure to try Sushi Lover Madison.
We're back with this special edition of Live at 4, Battleground Wisconsin, and many of us are exhausted by politics and the strained division can put on them and their loved ones.
But the director of UW School of Public Affairs is trying to change that. I'm here to talk about the La Follette Schools Community Conversations event, the school's director, Susan Webb-Yackey. Hey, Susan, how are you?
I'm just fine. Thank you for having me today.
Well, this is a very interesting endeavor you're on, so tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so we have launched into 6 different conversations across the state to try to get Wisconsinites to talk about the issues that matter to them and their community. So I'm the director of the La Follette School of Public Affairs at UW-Madison. So that means we study public policy, and we wanted folks in advance of this 2024 election to have a chance to sit down and in many cases break bread with fellow Wisconsinites, often Wisconsinites who don't share their same political persuasion, and talk about the issues that matter. So that's just what we did.
And you mentioned that same political persuasion. This event is for all voters, correct? Democrats, Republicans, undecided?
That's right. So we started, did 6 different events. So 2 events, an event in La Crosse, and actually an event next week in Milwaukee. So October 15th, Clinton Rose Senior Center, we're going to do an event in Milwaukee on inflation. So we did an event in La Crosse, an event in Milwaukee that are going to be more topic-based. But right in the middle, so 4 Wednesdays in a row, we went to 4 different Wisconsin communities to have dinner and conversation events. And so we went to Milwaukee, Green Bay, Eau Claire, and Madison. And at each of those events, we brought together independents, Republicans, and Democrats, sat around a table with a moderator, kind of a trained, nonpartisan facilitator, and talked about the issues that matter in advance of the election.
And so you're really hitting all 4 corners of the state, or all, how many corners in Wisconsin are there? I don't know. But have you noticed a difference between the different areas where you're going in terms of what you're hearing from people and kind of like the way people are interacting?
Oh, that's a great question. So across our 4 dinner and conversation events, we had the pleasure of hosting about 350 Wisconsinites. Again, red state Wisconsinites, blue state Wisconsinites, and I'll call them green, our independents as well. And across the events, there was a different tenor and tone to some of the events. I would say, our main topic that we talked about was K through 12 education, but the conversations could go any way the table wanted to. And I think we saw that reflected in the communities we were in. So for instance, in Green Bay, there was a lot of conversation about kind of rural life, independence, a lot about going out in the wilderness, and sort of like more of a kind of Great Lakes approach. And in Eau Claire, we heard different conversations. We heard a lot of conversations about that was our most diverse event, I will say, at Eau Claire, and it was probably the most special one as well, with people kind of hugging and high-fiving after the event. And there we talked a lot about, again, K through 12 education.
And you mentioned the hugging, high-fiving. Is that what you see most often, people really coming together as one through the event?
These events really differ. And I got to say, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that level of connection. And it certainly wasn't the case for all participants, but for a vast majority of the participants, they are giving us just rave reviews in terms of it gave them a space to come together in a way that our very divided society doesn't give them a chance to get to know essentially strangers, fellow Wisconsinites, but strangers, and talk about the public policy issues that matter.
Well, of course, one more this year in Milwaukee, October 15th, right?
That's right.
And then are there any more coming up next election? Is this something you want to continue doing, I guess, throughout the next, until I don't know when?
Yeah. We started this, we call it the Main Street Agenda Project, and we started the Main Street Agenda Project in 2022. Again, it was in partnership with Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and Wisconsin Public Radio, and we really wanted to get some public policy conversation in advance of the election, to move away from some of the horse race coverage that's so common. And we saw a real yearning for that. And one of the things that the respondents told us then, the participants then, said, we really want to talk to each other more. And that was what led to our 2024 conversation events. And we hope to do more in the future.
Absolutely. Well, Susan, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Susan.
Delighted to be here. Thanks.
All right. And of course, as politics continue to be more partisan, it's rare to see voters from Americans vote for two different parties on the same ballot.
But as Allison Forget explains, those few split ticket voters can tip the scales in Wisconsin, where thousands of voters can decide federal elections.
Years ago, it was common for voters to support different political parties in the same election cycle.
Voters would go Republican or Democrat for president and then go the other way for Congress.
But as our political landscape has changed, so have our voting habits.
Split ticket voting has decreased as voters have become more partisan and as the parties have become more divided. But split ticket voting does still occur.
A great example of that in Wisconsin is the 2022 midterms. Wisconsinites voted to keep incumbent Democrat Tony Evers as governor, while also re-electing Senator Ron Johnson to the U.S. Senate.
Both of those elections were very close, but there was enough split ticket voting to result in that split outcome.
While candidates will want to turn out their bases, they can't forget about the rare split ticket voter this election cycle. So, what do candidates have to do to win over those voters?
They're looking for a more moderate candidate, looking at, we might say, both sides of the coin before making a decision in terms of a policy outcome.
In Wisconsin's 3rd congressional race, candidates are following that formula.
Seems like everyone in Washington is either too far left or too far right. I'm Rebecca Cook, and like most folks in Wisconsin, I'm somewhere in the middle.
I am, by a factor of 20 percentage points, the closest to the next person, the most bipartisan member of Congress.
Knutson estimates that around 35,000 to 40,000 Wisconsinites are split-ticket voters. But with the state's razor-thin margins, they could tip the scale for a number of candidates.
Those ticket splitters could be the deciding factor in each of those races.
That was Allison Forget reporting. Coming up on Live at 4, the city of Madison putting out 2 budgets this week for the same thing.
Now, the results of next month's referendum will impact city services.
Spas. The Swim Spa Hot Tub and Sauna Show is this weekend only. Rows and rows of spas, hot tubs, cold tubs, and swim spas. The largest display in the state. Save up to 60% on all in-stock models. This weekend only in the Exhibition Hall at the Allied Energy Center in Madison.
Get an 11% rebate on everything at Menards. Attract a variety of birds to your feeder with Enchanted Gardens Black Oil Sunflower Seeds. This highly nutritious seed keeps birds coming back. Get a 50-pound bag for only $17.99 after rebate. Get the last roof you'll ever need. Menards Steel Roofing offers superior wind and hail resistance. Plus, it's available in cut-to-your-length panels for fast installation. Get an 11% rebate on all Menards Steel Roofing.
Save big money at Menards.
He murdered a father of 3, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access.
It sounds insane because it is insane. Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Prices are up, wages are down, inflation is crushing Wisconsin families. Yet Sarah Kieski, she supports lifting revenue limits, allowing property tax rates to skyrocket unchecked. Even more radical, Kieski's backers want to ban natural gas to heat our homes, driving utility bills through the roof. Tax hikes and higher prices for families and those living on fixed incomes. That's Kieski's record. Expensive and extreme. Reject Sarah Kieski and her radical agenda.
If your windows are leaky and drafty, it's possible they weren't installed properly. Many installers lack proper training, and shoddy installation leaves your home vulnerable to extreme weather. At Next Door & Window, we're reinventing window installation. Our approach ensures your windows are sealed tight and energy efficient. And your windows and doors will be installed by certified experts who treat your home as if it was their own. When you demand tomorrow's comfort, Next delivers. Visit nextwindow.com to learn more.
Spas. The Swim Spa Hot Tub and Sauna Show is this weekend only. Rows and rows of spas, hot tubs, cool tubs, and swim spas. The largest display in the state. Save up to 60% on all in-stock models. This weekend only in the Exhibition Hall at the Allied Energy Center in Madison.
News 3 Now First Warn Weather is brought to you by Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor.
Discover a shopping and design experience as comfortable as the furniture. Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor. Schedule your free design consultation today.
Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of Live at 4 Battleground, Wisconsin. Viewers tell us they want to be more informed on the issues this election season. This show is designed to do just that. We're taking a look at the two budgets the city of Madison put out this week. One for if the November 5th referendum doesn't pass, the other for if voters approve it. Now you'll remember that on your ballot next month, the city's asking you to make up for a $22 million deficit in the operating budget. If voters approve that referendum, the city will add 2 new garbage machine operators to the account for the city's growth. Madison would also reallocate money to the library system Imagination Center startup. And if the referendum does not pass, Madison will need to make more than $5.5 million in cuts to services. That will impact 18 full-time positions, reduce Metro Transit's budget, and limit library hours and other public safety services. Let's take a look at what you'd pay if the referendum is approved. The average homeowner would see their property taxes increase $230 a year. That's roughly $50 per $100,000 of property value, or less than $1 per day for the median home.
And Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway is urging Madison voters to approve the referendum. She says if the referendum gets rejected, that would mean significant cuts across city services.
So I think it's important to understand, if the referendum doesn't pass, this is just the first wave. And we will have to struggle to figure out what services to eliminate completely in the future if we don't get another source of revenue.
The mayor is also calling on the state government to help out cities like Madison by allowing them to raise more money locally through a sales tax. You can see more from the conversation in Madison this Sunday at 10:30 on For the Record or online at channel3000.com.
And Madison voters aren't the only ones seeing a referendum on the ballot. The city of Monona will ask voters to support a $3 million increase in the city's annual property tax levy to pay for growing operational expenses. Next week, the city's hosting its second and final information session for you to learn about how the referendum will impact your wallet. It's at the Municipal Room in the Monona Public Library at 6:30 p.m. Now, when voters head to the polls next month, many will be focused on the top of the ticket. But here in Wisconsin, the outcome of down-ballot races will also be quite the story.
After a Supreme Court decision earlier this year, Wisconsin has completely new legislative maps aimed at making the state legislature more representative of the population as a whole.
But will they actually do that? Well, I sat down with an expert to find out. February 19th, 2024.
Folks, it's a new day in Wisconsin.
Governor Tony Evers signs brand new legislative maps into law.
Today is a day that I believe will define our state's future.
Well, that future is now. In just under a month, Wisconsin voters will head to the polls, and we'll find out how much those new maps really made a difference.
We've gone from a map that favored Republicans to one now that's much closer to 50-50.
Joe Handrick knows this topic well. He's one of the consultants that helped draw the old maps back in 2011.
The maps that were in place clearly favored Republicans, and part of that was due to the fact that Republicans had put them in place, but a lot of it was due to the fact that Wisconsin's geography is such that Democrats are really concentrated in Milwaukee and Madison.
Wisconsin is a purple state, and I believe our map should reflect that basic fact.
Democrats were fairly successful in arguing that that's not fair, that if Wisconsin's a 50-50 state, the district should be roughly 50-50.
So will these new maps actually do what they were designed to?
Republicans still have a little bit of a mathematical advantage in the maps because, again, of that geography.
In the assembly, either party could come out with a majority, although Republicans are favored to stay ahead.
I expect Donald Trump to win about 50 assembly districts and lose 49 of them. But assembly Republicans will, more than likely than not, will win a few more seats than that because they have a lot of incumbents.
But we'll have to wait and see about the Senate. Only half of the seats are up this cycle.
It's a guarantee that Republicans will control the state Senate after this election. The Democrats need to pick up 4 seats that are in play this time around. And if they win all 4 of those, which is going to be very challenging to do for them, they could then potentially pick up the Senate 2 years from now.
The other hope for the new maps, though?
We've seen them sow more division, obstruct basic government functions, and ignore the will of the people by refusing to even consider basic common sense policies that should easily earn bipartisan support.
And do you think that these parties will have to work together more now than they maybe had to in the past?
On some of the big ticket items like passing a budget and large proposals that make the news, that might be true. But what I don't think a lot of people appreciate is just how much bipartisan work gets done now.
So there are 115 seats up in the legislature this fall, 99 in the Assembly and 16 in the Senate.
Coming up on Live at 4, how close Wisconsin's 94th District Assembly race is.
And how campaign finance law is impacting it. That's coming up.
Welcome to Oakmont Senior Community in Verona. Active seniors 55 plus will enjoy our new luxury apartments, professionally managed by award-winning Attic Angel. Call Demery today for a tour and reserve your place at Oakmont.
Tens of millions of roofs across America are failing, wearing out decades early and leaking, oftentimes without you knowing about it, causing tremendous damage. Here's how you know you have a problem with your roof. Black streaking, your roof looks rough, or granules shedding off into your gutters or showing up in your driveway. Your roof is wearing out too fast and it's going to cost you a bundle. RoofMax makes your roof like new by strengthening and rejuvenating it. So give us a call and we'll give you a free assessment to see if your roof qualifies.
Happy anniversary! Join us for our anniversary sale.
And help us celebrate. We're having our biggest sale of the year with savings throughout the showroom.
Where you can save big.
And you can save big.
You can save big. You can save big. On quality home furnishings throughout the showroom.
Join us for our anniversary sale.
Wanakee Furniture ETC. Bringing quality homes since 1996.
If you're living with dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy, or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Ask your doctor about Izervay.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay is an eye injection. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Do not drive or use machinery until vision has recovered after an eye injection or exam. Izervay is proven to slow GA progression, which may help preserve vision longer.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
So shift gears and get going. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay.
Welcome to Oakmont Senior Community in Verona. Active seniors 55 plus will enjoy our new luxury apartments, professionally managed by award-winning Attic Angel. Call Demery today for a tour and reserve your place at Oakmont.
A nationwide IV fluid shortage is hitting close to home. Tonight at 5, we're scoping out how it's impacting patient care, how local hospitals are scrambling to manage the crisis.
The First Warn Weather Team is tracking a series of cold fronts this upcoming weekend, when you can expect the coldest temperatures and the best chance for frost. We have the details at 5.
Then coming up at 6, 2 neighbors go head-to-head as their candidates head to the polls. How a lawn has become the newest battleground. Tonight at 6.
Welcome back. Wisconsin campaign finance laws that Republicans implemented a decade ago make it easier to stock the war chests in state assembly races.
One in particular has seen huge amounts of cash come in because in a key swing state, it could be the key district for state legislative control. Ken Kozorski has the details in La Crosse.
The political machine is pouring money into federal races, but both major parties know that hanging on to state control is crucial.
Wisconsin, first and foremost, that is our top defend. Okay, we came into this year looking at our majorities in the House and the Senate. We realized that this is number one.
If Republicans are on defense, Democrats in Wisconsin are on offense, looking to capture assembly control for the first time in over a decade under new district maps.
There is an enormous amount of money in the 94th Assembly District campaign.
Western Wisconsin's 94th Assembly District has traditionally skewed Republican, but it's as close to 50-50 as you'll get in the state. Incumbent Democrat Steve Doyle has held the seat since 2011 and beat Ryan Hipsch last cycle by just 800 votes. Those two candidates are in a rematch this fall.
But in the 94th, there are a lot of voters who really are voting the person, not the party. They want to know about the individual person, what their values are, what they're actually going to do in office. Steve Doyle is not someone who goes around throwing bombs or picking fights that he doesn't need to. He really, I think, kind of embodies the spirit of the 94th district in the sense of being someone who's focused on finding common ground.
We should run campaigns that bring people together.
The 29-year-old Hipsch, son of former Assembly Speaker Mike Hipsch, agrees on the need for common ground in Madison, but says he's better suited to make it a reality.
We need something new. We need a fresh voice. We need a younger generation that kind of pushes that old-timey politics, that bashing that we continuously see down there. And let's have just conversations.
The ads that the candidates themselves produce all focus on positivity.
It's time for fresh ideas from someone passionate about our area.
No party has a monopoly on good ideas. I'm Steve Doyle.
Doyle's been cranking that message out. By the end of June this summer, Doyle already had received $500,000 from the Democratic Party.
We're getting outspent, I think it's like 11-1.
And because the stakes of winning the 94th are so high, third-party groups are buying even more time to push negative ads.
Ryan Hipsch, unfit, unqualified.
Think you know Steve Doyle? Think again. Doyle refused to protect our daughters.
Hipsch says it feels like David and Goliath sometimes, but he hopes knocking on doors with his new voice approach will stick.
We see that it resonates with people saying, oh, I know Ryan, I've seen him. I know his family or something like that. I've been here my entire life. They know I'm not the big bad wolf that they make me out to be.
And even with Democratic spending far outpacing Republicans, the 94th is still anyone's seat.
This is going to be a really close one.
Up next on Live at 4, the impact of the black vote.
Our Tanasia Shaw speaks with voters about the issues they say are most important to them.
Emmy?
What?
Don't get confused. Stay on the path.
I am already confused. Welcome into your Midwest Money Minute. You all know Mr. Matt Coupland. You know, we try to think of creative ways we can tie in some fun entertainment with some real life education on finances, right? That's why we're here at Schuster's Farm out in Deerfield, because navigating a corn maze and navigating your finances are really a lot alike. In what ways?
Well, imagine when you go in, you don't know where you're headed to, right? And so if you could see the maze from the top, you'd know exactly how to get through safely the other side. But retirement's the same way. You don't know where it's gonna go, where a dead end may pop up, but our job as financial planners is to more or less make that map for you, to guide you through, get you to the other side, get you around those obstacles. So I guess in that regard, it's kind of similar.
And it's also not a quick thing. You don't expect to go in here and be out of this maze in 10 minutes. Getting a financial planner and really taking your finances serious, it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it's a process, and it should be enjoyable, which is what this should be as well. But the fact is, it's a lot more enjoyable if at the end you know that there's a way through. If you do get lost, you can find your way out. From year to year, it changes, just like out here, right? So that's where we come in and we keep that plan intact and guide you through.
I love it. So what do you say we go try it out?
Yeah.
And if we don't make it out, we yell for Nate, and he's gonna come find us. What do you think?
That's why we got a cameraman.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we bring him along. I think we're close. Yes, this is it.
Hey, well, and if you need help navigating your financial maze,
Call Matt and his team at Midwest Financial Group. They'll get you out of any corn stalk. I'm Emmy Fink.
you're buzzed into Madison.
You can get them out of corn stalks, right?
We'll try.
He murdered a father of 3, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access.
It sounds insane because it is insane. Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. Compare that to Trump. He fights for himself and his billionaire friends. He intends to enact a national sales tax, the Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle class families by $4,000 a year. Instead of a tax hike, we will pass a middle class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
MFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
Well, we know that every vote counts during elections. One that's talked about a lot, the black vote.
But how important is it? Our Tanisha Shaw is breaking down what black voters care about and what makes their vote unique.
They know that they have to kind of go further lengths to try to get and persuade black people to vote for them.
Black American voters in Dane County are speaking out ahead of Election Day.
I'm just excited for someone to get into office and to recognize that they have a specific group of people that need more resources.
I sat down with voters at Be Right Barbershop in Sun Prairie and members of UW's African Student Association. They talked about dozens of issues, like the economy and inflation.
Yeah, you got people trying to manage and budget their money a little bit more nowadays. You know, I used to have clients that get a haircut almost every week. Now you got clients that are trying to get a haircut once a month.
To immigration.
There's no security at the border right now. The border is just a mess. Even though we're all the way up here in Wisconsin, we're seeing a lot of more immigrants and different people coming up into this area.
And affirmative action.
I was accepted through affirmative action. Like, you know, there's still so many barriers to jump through. There's still such a low number of us. There's really not even enough of us here.
Along with the wars on the other side of the world.
It's definitely a big priority, and amongst most of my peers, I would also say it's a great priority to them. But unfortunately, I do feel like many of us feel almost hopeless in a sense that no matter who we vote for, we might not see a distinct change.
Every vote counts in a swing state like battleground Wisconsin. Last presidential cycle, Black Americans accounted for 5% of the vote, having a strong impact on the winner.
The turnout in 2020 in Dane County was 80%.
David Cannon is a retired political science professor from UW-Madison and says those numbers were phenomenal.
90% of black voters voting for Joe Biden and 80% turnout, which was even a little bit higher than Milwaukee County and higher than the statewide average.
Since Milwaukee County has the largest black population, their votes play an important role.
If you go back to the year 2000, all of the elections, except for the 2 involving Obama, have been decided by 1% of the vote or less. One of the decisive factors in all of those elections is the turnout in Milwaukee County. Because in Milwaukee County, the black vote has traditionally been about 90% Democratic. And so if you get a higher turnout in Milwaukee, you know, that every single percent of the vote is thousands of votes for the Democratic candidate. And so that can be really pivotal.
What makes the black vote around the U.S. unique is a trend.
There is a particular framework that social scientists have talked about called linked fate, where the belief that their interests are aligned with their group interests. So while many other voting blocs think of their own self-interest to vote, many Black Americans think about their own livelihoods and their group livelihoods, and that's often linked with their own self-interest. Because the black vote matters a lot more than we are led to believe that it does.
Do you think the candidates are aware of that?
Yes, I do think they are aware of that, and I think often it's being taken for granted.
In August, former President Donald Trump spoke at the National Association of Black Journalists.
I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country.
Donald Trump brought out the young African-American woman to one of his rallies to speak on his behalf I think she worked at the Chick-fil-A or something like that. Kamala had all of the celebrities come out to her presidential rallies or events that she had.
Harris also spoke to members of NABJ and announced a tour to historically Black colleges and universities.
Democratic politicians are expecting for people to vote, Black people especially, to vote the Democratic ticket. And kind of absolving themselves from that responsibility to do something different.
Some felt as though this is appropriate.
Which is, I think, great in getting like a younger audience and minority voters, seeing people that look like you endorsing Kamala Harris.
While others disagreed.
I think that it was kind of offensive for her to use Black entertainers in that way. I just want them to not only care about Black people when it's election time and care about them while they're also in office.
A big factor energizing Black voters is representation.
They have never seen what it looks like to be a Black woman holding a powerful seat like the president. And that galvanized a lot of people, that people were curious about it.
Using the pain from the past to empower themselves at the polls.
At one point in time, we wasn't able to vote, so to be able to walk into a poll and vote, I think every Black person should be proud to do that.
It's important for the Black community to remember that if we deem representation to be important to us, then that begins with representation at the polls.
Reporting in Madison, Tanasia Shaw, News 3 Now.
Tanasia, thank you. You can find all of our 3 for the People coverage on channel3000.com by clicking that banner at the top of the screen.
Up next, in a time of division, how some people choose to decorate could send a strong message, but it doesn't have to be negative.
How Madison neighbors are having fun with their differences by agreeing to disagree.
I'm working harder than ever just to pay the bills and provide for my family. But here's what Kamala Harris thought my money should go to instead. Job training for illegal immigrants, even after they commit crimes in America. Hotel rooms for illegal immigrants while our vets sleep on the street. Sex changes for illegal immigrants out of my pocket. Seriously, have these people lost their mind? Kamala Harris can never, ever be our president.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Joan Baldwin wants to ban abortion, even in cases of rape, incest, and when the mother's life is at risk.
And would jail doctors who perform them.
Baldwin voted to ban birth control, too, and to deny rape victims emergency contraception.
Banning all abortions and birth control? No one wants to tell you what to do with your body
more than Joan Baldwin.
But she can't tell you what to do with your vote.
With Sweeto Metal Roofing, you get quality metal roofs installed by the best in the business. A metal roof means no fading, no storm repairs, true sustainability, and lower energy bills.
Sweeto Metal Roofing, the last roof you'll ever need.
Kamala Harris is going to significantly raise taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
Kamala's plan will raise families' taxes by nearly $2,600 a year. Under Kamala, prices have already soared. Now she'd make it worse with even higher taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
President Trump will cut taxes again. No taxes on tips, overtime, or Social Security.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
I'm Joan Baldwin, and here at the shop, we have solutions both big and small. And that's why I fought in Madison for historically large increases for our fire, police, and EMS, and made sure that our small businesses had the permits that they needed to operate. I delivered millions for ag and rural road funding and created the one-day fishing license. I brought both sides together to make sure that our kids can both read and write. And those are both really big things, but you get the idea.
Well, while some consider politics a taboo subject, others around Dane County are making their voices heard.
Or should we say seen? Earlier today, I took to a few neighborhoods that stand divided. If you didn't believe Wisconsin was a battleground state, the battleground taking form in these front yards might change your mind. If you drive down Main Street in Oregon, you won't miss Kevin Shane's front yard. His political beliefs planted proudly for all to see.
It's a good thing to stand up no matter what you are. I mean, I think people should stand up and say who they are.
His neighbor does the same, but says something different.
We don't talk about it, we just put our signs out.
And on Queensway Road in Monona, Megan Morley displays an extravagant collection.
Just want to support the Harris Wallace team in the middle class and women, people of color, you know, people with disabilities.
And not just for herself.
Tried to think about how many I could distribute here, and started in my head, I was like, well, 50 or 100 or 150, and then I was like, it's a stretch, but let's do 200.
Driving through the sea of red and blue might stir up feelings of contention, but an anonymous sign distributor we ran into said that doesn't have to be the case.
When I see signs, it reminds me that people are engaged, they are paying attention, and I think the most dangerous thing to be is apathetic.
These community members are on a mission come November.
I read an article that having signs up politically can make a 1% to 2% difference in the outcome of an election.
But they say there's a bigger job to get done.
This one man is going to go away in 4 years. Whether he wins or loses, he's going to go away. But I'm going to still be here. And my neighbors, we need to all realize what the heck we're here for. We're here to be good friends.
Whether it's across party lines or property lines, for Kevin and his neighbor, it's all in good fun. But what do you think of your neighbor here?
She's a wonderful woman. I love her. And anytime I get some extra tomatoes from the garden, I take her some. And then there's those.
Reporting in Battleground, Wisconsin, I'm Maddie Heimsch, News 3 Now.
Maddie, what a great story. I mean, okay, so this all started because Maddie has a neighbor that has quite the political setup.
This all started because it was your idea.
It was my idea.
And Braden's making sure she gets credit for it.
Well, we drove by Maddie's neighbor who has blow up dinosaurs and
it's crazy.
stuff. So
it's crazy.
But it is cool to see people so engaged with their
you don't have to drive far to see it. That's for
and
sure.
you got to meet some cool characters too out
Certainly.
of it. So yeah, the faces behind the signs.
There you go. We'll be right back.
Spas. The Swim Spa Hot Tub and Sauna Show is this weekend only. Rows and rows of spas, hot tubs, cool tubs, and swim spas. The largest display in the state. Save up to 60% on all in-stock models. This weekend only in the Exhibition Hall at the Allied Energy Center in Madison.
My name is Bill. I am retired. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I live here in Wisconsin. I am not a political person, but Eric Hovde doesn't understand how important Social Security and Medicare are around here. I'm on Social Security, and Hovde said he absolutely supported cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Imagine working longer, paying into the system, and then poof, you're paying your bills with less. He knows it. Cutting Social Security and Medicare will cost us. He just doesn't care.
WinSenate is responsible for the content of this message.
Career politicians like Peter Barca will say anything to get elected. His latest negative ad against Brian Style, it's been called blatantly false. The truth, Style has always supported IVF. He co-sponsored a resolution supporting IVF. And Style backs legislation to help families afford IVF. Peter Barca can sling mud, but we deserve better than just another lying career politician.
I'm Brian Style, and I approve this message.
Fentanyl is one of the most lethal drugs on the market. This much can kill thousands. These deadly drugs are pouring across our border. But Biden, Harris, and Democrats have done nothing to stop it. Tammy Baldwin claims she's trying, but she's failed. She took credit for an anti-fentanyl bill she didn't write and opposed efforts to secure the border. Senator Baldwin and Democrats have done nothing, and our communities are paying the price.
I'm Eric Hovde. I approve this message.
Meet Sarah Kieski. You might see her walking around in her Woke Genius t-shirt. Radical, just like the groups that support her. Kieski supporters want to defund the police. Her allies want to give voting rights to illegals and make it easier for felons to vote. And Kieski is backed by a group that wants